Hi there and welcome to another episode of Mini Fights. I'm Brian, and this is video 3 in how to paint Godtear's Shayle. If you haven't watched any of the other videos, go ahead and click the icon on the top right. That'll direct you to the first video in the series, or just watch this one if you want. So I'm going to start out and just acknowledge that this step was pretty difficult because I am not a maestro of non-metallic metal yet. A lot of times when I'm attempting a non-metallic sort of technique, I'm doing it for the first time, or I'm using colors that I haven't used before, or I'm blending in with the airbrush in a new way that I haven't tried before. So there's some new stuff for me here, and that you can see me kind of, having a little bit of a fight with the miniature at times. And I'm going to be going in with this yellow and adding a lot of sort of light to the model, kind of within the areas we did orange. This is going to push it really to a kind of a gold. I wasn't sure I wanted it to be gold, and by choosing yellow, I've pretty much pushed it into gold now. That's okay. I'm pretty happy with the way it's been coming out so far. You can see that I've sort of done that kind of streaking, hatchy sort of light along the path that the light would hit. Especially the fist is basically a cylinder. It's kind of, like a glove that covers all the way up to his elbow. Where the light would hit that naturally, that's where I feel like I'm getting my light put in. I'm also sort of edge highlighting elsewhere. Metallic areas tend to reflect along their edges sort of regardless of whether they have direct light on them. That's kind of what distinguishes it from a non-metallic, non-reflective surface. Shayle himself is a lot easier. The edges are pretty evident. The armor plate in the middle, this kind of belly plate that he's got there, it's pretty easy to get. The hardest part for him is going to be that round shoulder pad and kind of getting in a realistic reflection. The little items on it that he kind of hanging from his waist, they're small enough that this is a pretty simple process as well. And as we got up to his shoulder pad here, you can see we've already got kind of a central glow. I add a little bit of a point of light in the middle, call it a day. The next step is going to be applying kind of a shade, a dark reflection in the metal. This is going to be a mix of the original Mornfang brown, which is kind of a clay color, and a little bit of black as well, which will push it a little bit towards cool, but still be a pretty warm tone overall. And we're just going to work this in certain areas to create that sort of reflective look. There is a kind of a split line down the middle there, which you see I add that little bit of black to. And that's going to define where the bend in that metal is in the center of that armor plate pretty well. So now it's right next to the highlight. This is probably the hardest part of non-metallic metal, is finding that just sort of reflection line. It doesn't necessarily have to reflect the horizon, but that is often what it does. This one I just kind of did vertical, and we're going to place it next to where the light hits, and then we're going to kind of blend that out as we move on. So it's kind of apply a little bit of this color, wet blend it. Now we're putting the color in to define that little ridge along the shoulder pad. Like I said, this is kind of just freewheeling, figure it out as we go kind of stuff. Don't be afraid to try this. I'm not good at it, and I'm working through it here on video for you to see. You're going to see as I'm going to put stuff down and remove it and cover it and as we go. But we're going to end up with a good result. You just got to keep sticking to it. So in addition to adding dark reflections in the metal, we're going to be defining some of the areas, kind of using it to sort of black line, even though it's not quite black. And you can see the various details of this glaive arm thing kind of coming together. Now I'm starting to work in that central reflection line concept here, kind of down the entirety of the blade. And you'll see me manipulating this quite a bit, adding paint, adding water, sticking my brush in my mouth, blending it out. Just generally kind of working it. I think the glaive arm was probably some of the most challenging area to work. I think this is probably some of the easiest area to work, and it came out the best. Working the shade into the helmet, it's pretty easy for me to figure out where the light should hit. And as soon as I add it and start blending it out, and again, the blend is kind of applying wet paint and then quickly wet blending it out with a wet brush. You know, cleaning the brush off, adding a little water, stick it in your mouth, blending with spit, whatever you want to do. But as I add that dark, it really starts to come together and look metallic to me. So I think the head is probably so far the best area of the gold non-metallic metal. And usually one of the last steps of any non-metallic metal is going to be a final layer of white. And it's up to you kind of where to put it. It's going to be your final edge highlight. In a lot of places, you also can add little points of light where you've built up layers and layers before. So I'm going to work through Shayle here, adding a little white to his armor plate on his chest, belly, whatever. And we'll add a little bit to his shoulder pad as well. So I'm starting to like the way this is coming out when I add the white to the sword. I think it's starting to make some sense visually. I'm not entirely sure it looks like a piece of reflected metal yet, but we're getting closer. It's definitely eye-catching, which is a big component of this. Sometimes it's not about realism, it's about looking good, and the rule of cool applies. I think this white layer really makes the gauntlet pop nicely. That reflection line along the outside edge is really coming together pretty nicely, and it's starting to become convincing. So as we end this video, start to add just a little bit of shade back in a few areas where I've lost it, kind of blacklining a few of the spots, cleaning up a few areas that just got messed up in the process of rendering. We're going to move on to some cool tones in the next video. Thanks so much for watching this one, and we'll see you next time.